What's going on, everybody? I am doing this video to update everybody on the tropics, what's happening with the two storms, Marco and Laura. At the time of this recording of this video, Marco has been downgraded to a tropical storm, and by the time that this video gets uploaded, it could be downgraded even more to a tropical depression. Now, the models yesterday, the computer models, not my models, the computer models were saying that it was going to make a hard left turn and head into Louisiana, skirt the coast, and head off into Texas. Well, that's not what happened. And you heard it here first in my last video that I said that Marco was going to head north. Now, I thought it was going to stay a hurricane, possibly a strong tropical storm, but the wind shear has kind of eaten at it and destroyed it. But we're going to look at the satellite, we're going to look at the infrared, and we're going to talk about the storms, the predicted path versus my path that I got going for Laura. Now, I believe that I'm going to be proven right again with Laura. The news weathermen can't seem to get anything right. But so far, I've been fairly right. Now, I've gotten a few things wrong. Now, when it was 3 days ago, I had the storms mixed up. I had Marco going towards Galveston and Laura going towards Mobile. Well, I corrected that yesterday in my video last night where I had it figured out to which way they were going. Now, Laura is still quite a bit of ways out, so it can change. It can change direction and everything like that. Now, mainstream media weathermen have Laura only going to Category 2. Some models are saying Category 3, Category 4, maybe even a Category 5. I still think just the Category 3, because Marco might have did a little bit of number in the Gulf to keep it from strengthening to a Cat 4 or Cat 5 hurricane, but it's still going to make it very strong. Of course, Marco took out that wind shear, so Laura is going to have less resistance. And the way the models look, the way the satellite looks, it looks like it's avoiding Cuba as much as possible and staying over open waters. So that means it could strengthen sooner than what the National Weather Service has it strengthening. So let's get into looking at those models, looking at the satellite. I'm also going to bring up the whole Atlantic satellite and infrared, because earlier looking at the weather, I noticed a disturbance out there that could be our next named storm, which would be Nana. And I'm going to make a bad joke here, so please forgive me, but if the next hurricane is Nana and hits the U.S., it's coming to your home. Nana's coming to your home and taking everything away. So, but let's get into the forecast for Marco, Laura, and also the disturbance out in the Atlantic. All right, so let's start off looking at my home forecast for Marco and Laura and my predictions on where it's going to make landfall and everything like that. As you can see, we got Laura here spinning off the southern coast of Cuba as a tropical storm as of 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We got Marco is still listed as a tropical storm, which, again, by the time of this recording, it could be already downgraded to a tropical depression. Definitely will be downgraded to a tropical depression at the time of upload of this video. Now, this is my home forecast. As you can see, Laura is marked around in black. shaded in with red. Marco is yellow, shaded in with the light blue. But this is where the predicted part of where the storm is going to hit, or what I predict where the storm is going to hit. Now, anywhere from southeast Louisiana all the way over to the Panhandle of Florida is what I see Marco hitting. I'm thinking as it is approaching the coast tonight that it could affect New Orleans, Mississippi, parts of Alabama. Now, of course, what you don't see is, and you'll see that in the satellite view, in the infrared, is that moisture is on the east side of the storm, whereas Laura, it's kind of on the south side of the storm, and south and east side of the storm, which is a classic for a tropical storm hurricane. Now, again, Marco, I think, is going to affect New Orleans with some storm surge, but people in that area, that region, lucked out with Marco because back here it was a Category 1 hurricane. Now, Laura is another story. As you can see, my cone forecast for Laura has it hitting anywhere mid Louisiana to on the west side of Galveston. Again, that's a wide cone. In my estimates, I mean, National Weather Service has it wider than that. It has it going all the way over to Alabama and to Galveston. So, I mean, they got a wider cone forecast, but you'll see that in a moment. Now, if you notice this yellow line in the middle of my cone forecast, that's what I see Laura doing. It's going to skirt south of Cuba. It's going to have very little land interaction, which is going to be conducive with Laura strengthening. And I feel right about here is when it's going to strengthen into a hurricane. They're saying about right here is a Category 1. I'm saying about right there is a Category 1. And as it makes its way through the warm waters of the Gulf, I see it striking around Galveston, Beaumont. I almost kind of wanted to mix the two words up. But that area, I see it striking as a Category 3. Now, there are some models that say Category 4, possibly 5 for Laura. And it all depends on the path that it takes. The more time that it spends over open water is the more time that it can strengthen. Now, we're also going to look at the dry air and the winds and everything like that to give you the most accurate forecast that I can give you without having any experience in weather. But again, Laura, I see hitting Galveston before heading north. Now, this white line you notice, that's after it gets past the cone area, it's going to head off to the east. Same with the red line for Marco, it's going to head off to the east. Now, there is a upper level low right about here, which I'm going to type in a big L and change the color. Let's change the color to a black so you can see it. That low is right about right here. Let's increase the size here so you can see it. But as Marco is not going to really affect that. Now, this low is going to pull some of that moisture over into Texas, possibly could be pulling Marco towards Texas, but I still see it headed north. Now, as Laura gets closer, that low is going to move out of here and down this way. Now, there is a big high right here, and it's going to move east or west, and that's it's been moving. It started here, and it's moving west, and that's what's steering Laura and Marco. Now, with the high, you have the circulation going clockwise. With the low, you have it counterclockwise. So that's why when the low was up here, let me get back to the hand. When the low was here, that's why they were figuring Marco was going to head towards Texas and skirt the coast. Again, it did do that. It's kind of right on the southern southeast tip of Louisiana right now. It could be different, but we'll see that in the satellite view. But again, the low is counterclockwise. So with this high going around this way, that's going to kind of steer as that high moves a little further west. That's going to push it more to the west, but it's also going to steer it to the north. With that low, counterclockwise, it's also going to draw the storm to the west. And those two storms interacting is going to give it that funnel right up into Texas or southwest Louisiana. So let's look at the satellite view and infrared on these two storms. Again, this is my cone forecast. I'll show you the National Weather Service cone forecast for Laura. All right, so what you're looking at here is two maps from the National Weather Service and one with the satellite. This is the map that you saw that I kind of took and drew my cone forecast for. But let's kind of go into that map first. And I wish I could make it a little bit bigger. But as you can see right here, there's Laura. And there's Marco. And this is as of 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And you can see the legend here. It's got listed as a tropical storm. Again, Marco could be downgraded by the time that I'm making this video, and definitely by the time that I have the video uploaded, it could be downgraded to a tropical depression. As far as Laura goes, who knows? It might be increased by the time I upload this video to a hurricane status. But right now, each one is still listed as a tropical storm. Nothing has changed. Let's see if we refresh the screen. Let's see if it actually lists them different. No, it's still got them listed as tropical storms. I'll move this up here. So it doesn't have them listed as tropical storms. They're not increased or decreased in size or intensity. But again, later on, Marco could be downgraded to depression. And of course, once it moves on land, it'll be a post-tropical cyclone or remnants. Now, earlier I mentioned that I noticed a disturbance here in the Atlantic. And we're going to get into that, but the Weather Service does not have, and NOAA does not have anything listed as a 40% chance or anything with the X's, different color X's. But we're going to look at the satellite view, and who knows, that might change within the next 48 hours. There might be a 40%, 40 to 60%, or 60 plus chance of a tropical or subtropical uh, cyclone. But right now, there is nothing. But again, this is the map that I use to draw my cone forecast for. Now, this is the other map that you might have seen at the top of the previous segment where I didn't get into this, but this is shows the two storms with the satellite view so you can kind of see where they are as far as cloud cover goes. Now, as I was talking about the disturbance coming off the west coast of Africa, these two sections I'm going to be paying close attention to. And I'm sure the Weather Service is going to be paying attention close to it as well. Now, as far as on the infrared, I know there's something right around here that might also be something to watch. But right now, nothing is listed on the National Weather Service for theirs. Now, let's look at active storms. And this is the cone forecast for Laura. It's still got it at 2 p.m. Tuesday. Still got it as a tropical storm. I think somewhere right in here or before 2 p.m. Tuesday, it's going to strengthen to a hurricane. But they got 2 p.m. Tuesday. Wednesday, 2 a.m. is when they got listed as becoming a hurricane. And models show it as a category 1. I think a category 2 by 2 p.m. Wednesday and making landfall as a category 2 around Lake Charles, Louisiana at 2 a.m. Thursday. But again, I believe that it's going to be further to the west. And you can see the yellow along the coast. And that is tropical storm watches. Nothing for warnings. You see this blue around Cuba? That is tropical storm warnings. Because there is a lot of moisture associated and wind associated with the storm. Now, as Laura leaves the coast, northern side of Cuba, which I think it's going to make it more of a westerly track and head up into the Gulf. In the next 48 hours, you can see hurricane watches and warnings listed here, which you do have a hurricane watch from southeast Texas all the way to middle Louisiana. And those are the watches and warnings for those storms. Now, the threat and impact, we're going to zoom out here. And here is from the national, this is the wind threat. Again, here's San Antonio, Houston's right here. So it's in that cone of some very strong winds, which I don't want to zoom out too much, but and that is the potential for winds 74 to 110 miles per hour. Now that could increase to that lighter shade purple, and as you stretch out, you get the orange and the yellows, which is 58 to 73, which is just below hurricane status, and yellow tropical storm status winds the further out that you go. But again, the wind for Laura is gonna, they got the cone forecast for it right here. Now you can see this other cone here. That's what they're saying for Marco. But again, I still see it going north. Let's look at storm surge threat. Now the red is potential for storm surge flooding greater than 6 feet above ground. I think it's going to get into that lighter purple, which some of it is right out here from the Texas, Louisiana coast all the way to mid Louisiana Gulf Coast. But it could change. It could be a lot further yellow, or there's some oranges 3 feet above ground. The purple is 9 feet above ground. So those are high storm surges. Now let's look at the flooding rain threat for this area. Again, this all could change, but the red is potential for major flooding rain. There is no purples yet, which is extreme flooding rain. But as you, it's a lot less. It's in the Lake Charles area, and that's where they think that the storm is going to hit. I still say it's coming more to the west towards Galveston, Beaumont area. And that area of red could be a lot wider by the time that Laura gets close to the Gulf Coast. But yellow, moderate, orange, moderate, yellow is localized flooding. And I'm going to leave a link to all these sites that I use in the description down below. Let's look at tornado threat. On the east side of the storm is where there is going to be a potential for a few tornadoes right now. Now that might increase to, I don't see it being a purple, but I do see it possibly being a orange or a red on the east side of the storm, because that's where most of the stuff, the higher winds, the higher storm surges, the flooding rain is on that east side of the storm. So that could move more to the west depending on the track of Laura. And as you can see, their cone has it going up and to the east, which I think it will go to the east eventually. But that is the different threats. Now let's look at the satellite view here from the National Weather Service and NOAA. Again, here's what's left of Marco. It's still a tropical storm, but as you can see, all the rain, heavy rain, is off to the east. Here's Laura. Now, this is part of the tropical disturbance that I see coming off the coast of Africa. We're going to get in that in the loop for the satellite view. This is just the image of the satellite and everything like that. Radar. You can kind of see the bands of rain right here, and this is just the rain bands itself. You cannot see anything of the storm here. So that's what I see, or that's what the National Weather Service sees for the forecast for Laura and Marco. All right, now let's switch over and look at the satellite and the infrared for these two storms. Now, as you can see, we got Marco right here. Well, it's actually the low is right here. This is just the eastern bands of the storm headed off into the panhandle of Florida and out towards sea. But the storm is right about right here, right now. Now, that storm could still push to the west, but I doubt that because I think the low is more down here. As you can see with this cloud kind of circling around here or pushing up south here, so it's the low's probably right about here around South Texas, towards Brownsville and everything like that. So if that low stays right there, that's going to help steer Laura with the high right about here off the east coast of Florida, which is dragging the moisture from Marco up and over. So Marco, again, by the time that this is uploaded, could be downgraded to a tropical depression and making landfall probably right about now. Pretty sure it's making landfall right now with some tropical storm winds, 40 to 60 mile per hour winds around New Orleans, Mississippi. But the storm we want to watch is Laura right here. And this is on a 24-hour loop. Again, this is the satellite view. You can see that it looks like it is starting to form an eye wall. And I'm going to look at Cuba as far as what is in the way of the storm. Now, last night it passed over the Antilles, the eastern part of Cuba, which was some pretty high mountains. And it weakened a little bit, but as it moved over this open water here, south of Cuba, it re-intensified. And you can see the cloud tops here on the satellite view. But like I said, it looks like it is working on forming an eye, but it will not form an eye wall until it gets into the Gulf, a good distance away from Cuba. That's why I still got it at a Category 3 hurricane hitting Texas, Louisiana. But this is like I said, a 24-hour loop. And this is a satellite view. Now let's take a look at the TLM field, the lightning map. And you can see how on the south side of the hurricane, there is a lot of high cloud tops, low temperatures, a lot of lightning strikes. As you can see right here, this is flashes per every 5 minutes. It's anywhere from probably around 50, well, actually, probably anywhere from about 8 to 50, maybe lightning strikes every 5 minutes on the south side of Laura as it makes its westerly northwest track into the Gulf. Again, you can see that circulation. That's a 24-hour loop. Now let's check into the air mass. And this is where you can see now a lot of this brown color is that dry air. There is still some dry air here, but not as much. A lot of that dry air was down here with Marco, which helped tear the storm apart. There is no guide here, but again, that's that dry air. And is lighter colors is less dry air, but you can see there's still some dry air here in the Gulf. Now that dry air is going to interact a little bit with Laura, but not as much as it impacted Marco, as more of the dry air is more up here in Texas, and that's going to get pushed out a little bit with the storm coming into the Gulf. But I don't think it's going to affect Laura too much. Now, on the east side, there's still some more dry air coming off of Africa and the Atlantic. And as you can see right here, you got a little bit of circulation. I'm going to talk about that a little bit later. But as you can see, the dry air is not going to affect it too much. Now let's get into the winds here for the storm. And you can see that rotation of the winds and the outward push from Laura. And you can see the winds kind of pushing up here. The reds are the high level winds. Blue is a mid level and yellow is low level. So there's some strong high level winds, very little mid level or low level winds, and very little mid level winds, but a lot of high level winds, which again, that low is right about here. So it is kind of streaming up here. That's what steered Marco to the east, and that's what's going to steer Laura to the east once she makes it on landfall. And as you can see, with the cloud cover of Marco headed off to the east, Laura's eventually going to do the same, but not before hitting the Gulf Coast as possibly a Category 3. But that again, you can see the high level winds of 100 to 400 millibars, and at a height of altitude of 23 to 46,000 feet. So those are very strong upper level winds that are steering this storm. Now let's get into, we're not going to go through all this stuff because it kind of dissipates everything, but let's look at the shortwave radar. And you see this darker color on the north side and the south side of the storm. Here's a chart here. Now, you're looking at some areas of minus 83 degrees, possibly around 80 degrees, minus 80 degrees Celsius, which if it's 80 degrees Celsius, that is minus 112 degrees Fahrenheit. These cloud tops, very cold temperatures. And again, you can see that rotation. I'm seeing a very strong hurricane coming into the Gulf. Now, it is going to make some landfall with Cuba, but not very much. And again, I'm going to show you the map of Cuba a little bit later to show you what it's going to have to contend with on the western part of Cuba. So let's look at now the water vapor, the upper level water vapor. And I'm going to scroll down here because you got the chart of the temperatures of the water vapor. And for Laura, on the south side of the storm, there's that aquamarine color, which is about very cold water temperatures, dropping down to this blue color, which is minus 30 degrees Celsius, which is warmer. And it is the water temperature, which I don't have that pulled up, but is very warm water in the thing. And you get this dropping down, that cold, wet air dropping down into the storm as that warm water is rising and circulating and causing this rotation for Laura. Not so much on the darker colors, darker green, so it's not so much cold air, but it's still got some cold air to it. But again, Marco is right about here. Now let's look at the mid-level water vapors and again, all this is the past 24 hours. As far as mid-level, you still got those aquamarine colors for Laura, which indicates very cold water vapors, whereas you got warmer thing on the surface. So it's a very cold storm up aloft, and that is conducive for a big hurricane. Now you see the yellows here, it's a lot warmer temperature, and that is for Mexico and everything. You can kind of see that low swirling right there on South Texas. It is pushing all this cloud cover up, which is going to steer Laura to the east a little bit, but with this high pressure here, that is also, if that high pressure moves this way to the west, it's also going to steer Laura more to the west. Depending on what the high does and the low does, that will determine where Laura heads. Now let's look at the lower level water vapor. And as you can see, still that aquamarine on the south side of the storm, which is very cold temperatures, but lower level water vapors, you can see around minus 15 Celsius. That's very warm water, very warm air at the lower levels of the atmosphere below the storm. So it's going to interact with those warmer waters, and that warmer air, water vapor is going to rise to the top, making this a lot colder, and there's going to be a lot more close circulation as it enters the Gulf. But again, it depends on what it does with Cuba and if it makes more of a westerly track or if it makes a northerly track over Cuba. We'll look into the Google Earth view of Cuba near the end of this video. And again, that's all I'm going to cover with this. Let's go back to the shortwave infrared. Again, with this, very cold tops of this storm. Now there is those storms here, but like I said, right here, there ain't much going on there, and there's nothing on the National Weather Service for that. But you can see kind of a little bit of a circulation, not too much. I don't think that that's going to really cause anything, but it's something to watch. Now the disturbance in the Atlantic further to the east around the west coast of Africa, I'm going to look at that disturbance because the Weather Service doesn't have anything for that area as of yet. But looking at going back to the satellite view of Laura, you can see the eye wall is right about here on Cuba and western part of Cuba. So it's trying to strengthen, it's trying to form. And again, once it gets into the Gulf, it could be a very strong hurricane. So I'm saying anywhere from Corpus Christi to Mississippi, Alabama, I would be prepared for anything. But again, I think it's going to be southeast Texas, southwest Louisiana that gets hit hardest from the storm. Now let's look at the Atlantic. And here is the disturbance I'm looking at right here of, let's see if we can move this over a little bit. I know it's a lot black here, but off to the left of this. But if you look at this disturbance right here, that's what could be that or something here that hasn't come off the coast of Africa yet could become Nana. Again, I'm seeing some circulation right here, but I don't see that becoming a storm. That's just probably something kicked up from Laura. But this disturbance, as it cuts across the Atlantic, could impact Florida or the Gulf Coast. It's still a good distance out, at least 10 plus days. So that's something to watch. But got some storms here. But again, Laura's right here. And then the next 48 hours, even the next 24 hours, is going to be telling on what Laura does. But I wanted to bring up the Atlantic because, like I said, there is a disturbance here and still on the coast of Africa that could head this way. As far as the Pacific goes, not really much forming there. I mean, it's just kind of getting torn apart because of that low. So I doubt anything for Baja California. But Laura is the main concern everybody is focusing on right now. So let's take a look at next, take a look at Cuba and see what Laura has to contend with going over the western part of Cuba. All right, so now we're looking at Cuba and everything like that. I'm going to zoom in here. And the eye wall is right around here, or what is trying to form as the eye wall. Now, if you look at the western part of Cuba, there is some mountains here, but not as big as the Antilles in eastern Cuba. Now, if that storm stays a little further south, there is less land interaction and a lot less hilly country of Cuba. So if it stays right around here, it's got a lot of flat land and a lot of warm water to go over. Now, let's look at, click on the weather, zoom out, and you can see Laura right there. Again, the eye wall is right around there. Havana is getting a lot of that outer band, some tropical storm winds, 60 plus mile an hour wind, not hurricane strength yet. It needs to be 74 miles per hour for hurricane strength winds, but it is a very strong tropical storm. Like I said, in the next 12 to 24 hours, this could change. Definitely in the next 24 hours, it could change as it gets into the Gulf of Mexico. But as you can see right here, you can almost see on the satellite image on Google Earth of an eye wall trying to form here, right here over this open water. And again, it has very little land to go over. Now, they thought it was going to go over Cuba, and I apologize for the little hands off to the right side of the screen, but my thing did that. I don't know why. But again, the eye is here, and it's got this to go over Cuba tonight, and then it hits the warm waters of the Gulf. So it's got a lot to do still yet, but the land of Cuba has not decreased its strength any. So that's what I see as far as what Laura is doing, what the tropics are doing, and everything like that. So that is my kind of my detailed forecast for Tropical Storm Laura, which will in the next 24 hours be a Category 1 hurricane, if not stronger in the next 24 hours. But the next 24 hours is going to be telling on this system. Again, it is strengthening quite a bit. Cuba had very little effect on it. It stayed mostly over open waters, just south of Cuba, so that allowed it to maintain a lot of its strength. It did drop a little bit, again, like I said, near the Antilles of eastern Cuba, which kind of broke it apart a little bit, but not too much. It maintained its strength. Now, again, I see it coming onshore in the Gulf Coast, anywhere from Galveston to Lake Charles. That's my predicted area as a strong Category 3. Now, again, there is a possibility that it could strengthen to Category 4, Category 5. Only time's going to tell on that. So, this is going to be my last update for tonight. I might update again tomorrow afternoon, tomorrow evening, as Laura enters the Gulf of Mexico. Thank you for watching this video. Again, I have no experience in forecasting weather, but so far I've been pretty right on these storms. So, I mean, don't just take my word for it. Pay attention to the National Weather Service. Look out for watches and warnings. If you live on the Gulf Coast, be prepared. Last night was the night to be prepared because they thought Marco was going to be stronger than it was, but no. So you got tonight, tomorrow to really prepare for what is going to be a strong hurricane in Laura. So if you live anywhere from Galveston to mid Gulf Coast, Louisiana, I would be prepared for anything. And if you want a wider view, kind of a little extra preparation, anywhere from Corpus Christi to Galveston on the west side, and from mid Louisiana to the Alabama, Mississippi, even the Florida Panhandle, I would be a little prepared there too, just in case it does make a turn. But again, if you live from Galveston to middle Louisiana Gulf Coast, now is the time to be prepared for this storm. So thank you for watching my forecast on this storm, and I will update you again tomorrow afternoon or tomorrow evening as more details come in about Laura and how it has strengthened. So until then, I'll see you.